Hello and welcome. This is our first ever challenge made just for first responders, meaning you. And I am so excited to kick us off for day one. If you saw the slide, you might have seen that today we are talking all about how to retire in 10 years or less as a first responder. And I am really excited to dive right in and get going today. Before we do, though, I want to go through a couple of logistics for you guys. You might be watching in the Facebook group, or last minute, we added a YouTube option, as we know that many of our first responder friends do not have Facebook. So you guys will have options to watch us live either in Facebook or YouTube. We'll also be sending out an email every single morning, an hour before we get ready to go live. And then I'll follow up with an email with the replay. So we also know that as first responders, your schedules can be pretty busy or very demanding. And we want to make sure that you guys have access to the replays for the duration of the challenge. So what does that mean? It means that eventually the replays do come down. We're challenging you guys to show up and go all in on this topic of wealth creation over the next few days. We're going to have 5 main days of training. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then we have 2 incredible bonuses scheduled for you on Sunday and Monday. This is the time we're going to be coming to you during this week, 12 Pacific Standard Time. And then on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, we'll be coming to you at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So you can join us and watch us live. You guys can interact in the comments. I see there's 7 or 8 of you watching live right now. You guys can interact in the comments, hang out with us in there. If you have questions or comments, anything that you want clarification on, go ahead and interact there. I'm going to be watching and monitoring those comments with you guys, hanging out there. Or you can catch the replay. And so if your schedule is demanding, if you're working, if you're not able to join us live, no problem. Those replays will be available all the way through next week at the end of the challenge. So you guys will have the opportunity to watch. But it's going to be a really great week. So let me go ahead and dive in. I want you guys to know that I'm here. I'm hanging out with you. I'm kind of going to be the, in between. Yes, I have the honor and privilege of being married to one of these handsome gentlemen. And I have the honor and privilege to be best friends with the other one, and also the godparent to his 2 beautiful little babies. And when I say his, I also mean his wife. So I just want to brag on us for a quick little hot second. We met in October 2018. I instantly fell in love with Shelly, Ramie's wife, and we became quick friends. We started working together and doing life alongside of each other. And I'm going to let Michael tell a little bit more of the story, but we just knew that the 4 of us, there was something really special about what our relationship held. And so last year when they had these adorable little boys, you'll see the twins at the bottom right, Amir and Jamari, and they asked us to be their godparents. It was such an incredible day. And then there is our son, Micah. He is 10. And so the 4 of us with our 3 boys are going to be showing up every single day to serve you guys, to bring and add value through our content, through the knowledge and information that we've gone through and acquired, the skills that we've gained in understanding wealth creation and wealth vehicles and what that looks like. And Michael and I specifically, and I know Ramie and Shelly are as well, really passionate about first responders. First and foremost, because Michael is a first responder. And so we're a first responder family. And I know that Ramie comes from a family of many first responders. And so as a family unit, we're super excited to show up and just serve you guys. We want to see you win. And so over the next couple of days, we're going to be going deep into this content of wealth creation. But each day, we're going to be able to share an agenda with you guys of some of the things you can anticipate or expect to learn. And so today is all about how to retire in 10 years or less. We're going to talk about the best wealth vehicles, what they are, how they, how we discovered them, how Ramie helped us in that process. We're going to talk about where you need to start. Ramie's going to kind of end the day with that. And you might be surprised to learn what that process looks like. And we're also going to talk about, pensions and how not to be one of the 6 that are living paycheck to paycheck. So I'm really excited to dive in today. This is like such a surreal moment for me because I now have the honor and privilege of introducing to you my husband, Michael Peel, who is definitely my favorite human. Not only are we married almost 17 years, but he is my best friend. And the journey for him to become a first responder was not an easy one for us. And I battled it. You guys, you work really hard and you serve in some of the most dangerous places. And I didn't want my best friend and husband to be going out and doing that. I wanted to know he was going to come home safe every night. And so when he and Ramie started talking about this, I knew that I could put my whole heart and soul into helping first responders create wealth so that if they wanted to, they had options. It is so empowering to know that you have options to say, oh, I'm doing this job because I love this job. I don't have to pick up overtime hours or whatever it is. And so I am so honored to introduce him to you guys. If you know him, which most of you probably do, because this was a private invite situation, you know that his heart and soul is for this career, and he is all in on first responding. He is all in on his job, his career, and he really believes that you guys are out there making a difference. And so I'm going to let him tell a little bit more of his backstory, but I am so excited to introduce him. So babe, if you just want to come on screen with me.
How's it going, everyone?
All right, so I'm going to hop off here and let Michael come on in and dive into some of the content for today before he introduces Ramie. You guys are in good hands. I can't wait to see you more at the end of the challenge or tomorrow. But babe, if you want to take it away from here.
Thank you.
And yes, there is that much of a height difference.
Yeah, we're working on it. We had to adjust the camera and the desk. So, wow, that's quite an intro. Thank you, love. That is, it's pretty cool to actually do this together. This is really a multiple year kind of vision in the making that we have really desired to help first responders. I come, and I'll get a little bit of my story. I come from a financial background, as probably many of you know, and I came to this industry and I just saw a lot of mistruths and a lot of things that were being shared that didn't seem to be helping first responders, or maybe even putting them in a backwards direction. And so we've been talking about this for years. How can we help this industry? How can we take, the 15 years of my financial knowledge, what we've learned, everything in real estate and the market, bring together the people that have helped us succeed and actually help this industry. So here we are today. The whole idea between the Wealth Op is basically creating an operation plan for your life, for your wealth. We believe in creating generational wealth, leaving a legacy for your family. I personally believe it's a duty to succeed and do well by your family, whether man, wife, doesn't matter. If you are actually building something, let's do it the right way. So some of my beliefs, and this, it's pretty surreal because, like I said, years in the making. This has really stemmed from, probably upwards of 1,000+ conversations that I've had at my department. There's officers on here today that are from other departments throughout the U.S. Of kind of those raw, real conversations when you get beyond, the exterior of a first responder, the exterior of, cop or firefighter, nurse, EMT, which is all represented here. There's a lot of real struggles that I've been able to witness to or talk to guys about, girls about, of like, hey, I'm struggling with credit card debt, or hey, I can barely afford this house, or I am stuck in this overtime game where if I don't work overtime, I can't even, cover my expenses. So now I'm stuck. And what happens if overtime dries up? And what do I leave for my kids? I know I've got a pension, but doesn't that die with me? My deferred comp isn't growing very well. What can I do about that? What do you know about, stock options? What do you know about real estate? And so the idea is let's birth basically an op plan for first responders to succeed and do well. Um, and the underlying theory is and belief system is, hey, if we can fix the financial stressors of a family unit, you can have situations where marriages may be, saved or kept together, because finances are one of the major stressors that pull men and women apart. And you've got situations where people aren't home with their family because they're stuck in that overtime battle, like we're talking about. So maybe this helps restore relationships with the kids at home. And then if we can fix the financial barriers at home, we can kind of fix that family unit, the family office we'll talk about later. Then in theory, the stressor and the weight that you carry is relieved. You're building something amazing for your family, then you show up better at work. And if we can show up better at work without carrying that weight and that burden, then we show up better serving the citizens that we protect. The altruistic idea, right? When they asked you, why do you want to work here? Your answer originally was, I just want to help people. And I still think there's some truth to that. I know it's easy to get jaded in this industry, but there's still truth to what we're saying. So if we can show up as a whole and complete person, then we can actually show up better for the people that we're here to protect. So that's kind of the idea of what this is all about. So I appreciate you joining us. Like I said, we got multiple departments joining us right now. We've got guys and girls on YouTube, which is cool, Facebook Live, and I am not a professional at this, but I'm learning. So here we go. Let's go to the next slide. And here it is. So this is a great quote. I don't know if you guys know Miles Monroe. He's written some amazing books. Pastor, I don't know your religious belief systems, but he said a quote: "How well you manage what you have will determine how much more you will get." And there's a lot of truth in that, right? If we can manage our finances well, if we can manage our relationships well, our careers well, then the increase will show up, right? So when we're talking about finances, the idea being that let's manage what we have well, because now we're going to rebuild or build the foundation for more to be built upon, right? If your foundation's weak, you're not going to build a house on a weak foundation. And so if we need to rebuild your foundation, that's part of this wealth up. If we need to start a foundation for you, that's part of the wealth up. And if we just need to increase, maybe we need to tweak some things to help your foundation, that's part of this wealth up too. So all of this is in the idea being, hey, let's fix our finances so we can build that generational wealth. So let's move to our next slide. I'm learning here. There we go. So a little bit about my story. Some of you know this, some of you don't. I was 31 years old when Holli and I started having that conversation about transitioning to being a first responder. And that was not an easy conversation at first, but it was a good conversation. I think the idea being that, why would I leave a pretty lucrative financial career to go do something that is more dangerous than a potential paper cut? So long and short, when I was 15, started working, I was on my own pretty early. 17 years old, started working for a local tax firm, moved to San Francisco as far as working for a firm out there. And we focused on high net worth individuals. I'm talking 500 million to $1 billion of assets, nonprofits. So we really focused on those two niches. Did pretty well there. It was kind of on a partner track. And then they told me, hey, you can make partner, make all this money, but there's a good chance you're going to lose your marriage in the process. So we kind of put an abort to that. I said, well, the knowledge is great. I ended up actually starting my own practice, tax and accounting. A bunch of my clients came with me. That was a really fun run. And then while we were doing that, we had this interesting turn of events and certain things that kind of lined up. And we actually started moving into the commercial real estate industry, specifically into self-storage facilities. And that has been an absolute wild ride. It's been absolutely phenomenal. But we kind of did that at the same time. So started my own practice, got into self-storage, found a property pretty far up north, owner finance deal, and we started that at the same time. So we did have a lot going on. We did that for a couple of years, kept the industry. And then one of my clients actually offered me their chief financial officer position for a construction company. It was struggling a little bit. Economy wasn't doing great. So we took that in about a 5-year span. We started around 15 million and we took it, I think, up to about $75 million. And I had 200 employees under me. So I was busy. And that was, I think I was 26, 27. So I found some favor with the owner. And then his son came in. We rebuilt that whole company. And we went through a pretty big shift. We went through things like rediscovering who we are as leaders. There's a bunch of leadership books that you can read. We went through all of those. We hired consultants. We hired all these people to come in, advisors to determine, hey, are we even the right people to rebuild this company? We have a culture issue. Some of your departments may have that same thing. Sometimes the leadership gets so disconnected with the line level or your staff that they have no idea how to help. So went through all these changes. 5 years into this, we were doing extremely well. And then I'm not exactly sure when the shift occurred, but I approached Holli and I said, hey, I want to do what I want to do. I've been, basically in this finance career for 15, maybe 16 years, and I want to pursue something I'm passionate about. Yes. And then I had to walk her through, hey, it's half the income. But thankfully we have, our storage business is going well. And I want to do something I'm passionate about. I truly have a desire to help people. I came from a little bit of a history and my family with some not so good things. So my theory was if I could actually, enter those houses and help people, that would be pretty awesome, whether it's on the fire side, the police side, EMTs, having somebody in the back of your rig, or on nursing. So that was my idea. We went through kind of a journey of how to navigate starting this new career. There was one department that I wanted to work for. And I was fortunate enough to get hired by them. We do come from a family of law enforcement and military, but I had not taken the plunge until I was a little bit older. So here I am at 30 years old, starting police academy. And it's a little humbling when you're running up hills and over walls, and there's guys in their 20s that make it look effortless. But my niece survived, which was good. And then I got to start in a job that I actually love. So fast forward, police academy, fire academy, EMT academy, our department does all three. And it's kind of an interesting model, but we're a public safety model. Just fell in love with the career. So, in the beginning phases, get through training. I'm doing what I love to do, but then I found that there was an interesting need for our department members, that there was a lot of bad information being taught about finances. And, me coming from a financial background, I'm brand new and I'm not trying to ruffle feathers, but I'm like, hey, I don't know if that's like good advice, or I don't know if that's the right idea to really build wealth, but I'm trying not to be disrespectful, and I'm, this brand new guy. But the conversations started developing, and I started getting to talk to more people, and just realizing they weren't really maximizing their pension, weren't really maximizing their 457B plans or deferred comp. Had questions about real estate, weren't really sure how to do that. Understanding the idea of, what is, self-storage, talking about commercial real estate, how is that a wealth vehicle, understanding life insurance, putting protection first in place, building the walls on top of that foundation. And so all these conversations kept, coming forward. And, I've got, people breaking down in our back lot, talking to me about, they've got $100,000, $200,000 in credit card debt and there's no way out. It's like, oh, well, I have the answer for that. Here you go. And so all this was built upon the idea that we can not only help first responders, but how do we get the message out to a larger audience? Because if I'm seeing this in my department and the friends I've got, my local departments nearby, then I'm guessing the same message is occurring, or the same situation is occurring outside of my local area. So we built this wealth op. We're writing a book that should be out shortly, which is exciting, to kind of give people a step-by-step process on how to build wealth and generational wealth and leave a legacy. But the idea being, if we need to get this message out to more people, how else do we do it? So this wealth op was created. We're now here. This is our first event. And based on some of the responses, people seem pretty excited. So here I am. So I'm in my career. I love my job. I love my career. I love helping people. And now I get to pursue an even greater passion. I get to help the first responders that are helping other people, and hopefully they can show up better for it. So let's go to our next. Here we go. Vehicles. So as we start talking about wealth, we're going to be talking about wealth vehicles. And if you're not familiar with that term, think of a wealth vehicle. I mean, just like driving your car, right? If you're going to get from point A to point B, you're going to take a vehicle of travel, right? So when we talk about wealth vehicles, there's really only 4 parent level wealth vehicles that are really worth discussing. And within those, there's obviously a bunch of subcategories, but one way to build wealth and wealth vehicles is going to be business ownership, entrepreneurship. I actually have found quite a few first responders who have an entrepreneurial spirit in my department, which is pretty cool. And then a few of even our family members are starting multiple businesses outside of this career, which is excellent. So that's one vehicle. Paper assets, you've got currencies, bonds, money markets, life insurance policies. There's other assets that are considered paper assets that you can actually build wealth. Commodities, you can trade gold, silver, oil, any basically naturally produced product. And then I highlight real estate, commercial real estate, and I mentioned self-storage on this slide simply because for us and what we've learned This is actually still the most profitable commercial real estate opportunity available, which is pretty cool. So I know mobile home parks is right up there with self-storage, and they're both amazing industries. But this is something that we've been fortunate now on our third property to kind of build and actually create something pretty cool. So those are wealth vehicles. So when we talk about that, just think in this back of your mind. If a vehicle is going to take me to point A to point B, which vehicle do I want to take? How nice of a vehicle do I want to take? How fast is that vehicle? And will that vehicle be able to support me on my journey? So those are wealth vehicles. This is some of our storage stuff. We're talking about highlighting it. We have 3 properties, overall in our career here, 2011, 2014, 2021. Our current facility is in Sacramento, and that has been a phenomenal property for us. And we're going to dive into that more in day 3. But this is just kind of our background. So skip on to the next. So let's talk about the 10-year plan. If you saw the title or the tagline of our challenge, it talks about, the path to retiring in 10 years and less. So our belief system, what we've seen proven, is if you follow a certain path or a certain steps to build wealth, you actually have the ability to retire. Now, that doesn't mean you necessarily want to walk away from the job. I mean, maybe you do, but you have the ability, which basically means you have enough either cash producing assets or enough in a position that's building wealth for you where you don't have to show up for work. And I don't know if any of you have been in that position or not. Maybe some of you are. But if you're not, there is a lot of freedom that comes with that. And you actually get to go to work because you want to work, which is pretty cool. So if you actually like what you're doing, great, keep doing it, but you don't have to. And if, I guess we're a little bit crude at times, but if you do want to give the finger to somebody and say, I'm done, you've got the freedom to do that. So that is the idea behind the 10-year plan. Whether you haven't ever heard of that, or you haven't started, or you're halfway through, this is the idea. So understanding different wealth vehicles, we've talked about that. Understanding your number. So what's your number is going to be basically looking at your personal financial situation and realizing, what do we have to do to get you to the number you want to be? What does that look like in retirement? What does that look like when you may or may not want to move out of state, depending on the state you live in? What does that look like for money for your next generation? If you've got kids, maybe grandkids, what do you want to build? What kind of legacy are you creating? And that is a very interesting conversation to talk about somebody's number, because everybody's number is totally different. So you can't just give a boilerplate, follow this, this, and this, and you'll get to your number, because my number may be different than your number, and maybe less, maybe more, etc. But we're going to teach you how to figure out what your actual number is, given all of the specific situations in your life. Kids, no kids, doesn't matter. Spouse, doesn't matter. Maybe third spouse, who knows what you're on right now, but we're going to figure out a way to get you to your number. So then we're going to talk about the pension system. The pension system is still something that we have for most first responders. I know, specifically speaking of California, we've got CalPERS, but CalPERS is also struggling. And if you are a newer officer like myself, you just saw a 0.75% increase to the CalPERS system because they invested poorly in the market, and now they are concerned about funding their current pensions. So that is a little bit concerning. The other problem with your pension is your pension generally will die with you. If it doesn't, that means you're actually missing out on monthly retirement benefits, because now you've got your pension set up for maybe your spouse or your kids, but that means you're missing out on creating wealth. So our pension is great for our current generation, but the pension doesn't create generational wealth. And then, as Holly mentioned earlier, one of the 6. So if you guys don't know this, 64% of people are paycheck to paycheck. So if you're in a room with 10, you are 6 of those 10 are living paycheck to paycheck, which means that if something goes sideways, a vehicle breaks down, hole in the roof, who knows, whatever catastrophe can happen, they are not in a position to not only make that situation get better, they're definitely not in a position to grow wealth or actually get ahead. So that's a pretty alarming statistic. And I think you guys would probably agree with that, knowing the state of our country currently. But part of this is to help avoid that. So let's see. Storage 10-year plan. And this is really good too. I like this. I'll change to our next slide. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. So, at the end of the day, we all have to start our journey on building generational wealth or creating a legacy, right? Sometimes those words alone can be overwhelming, but we do have to start somewhere. And part of that is seeking out advice, seeking out counsel, finding people you trust. Part of that is enrolling in courses. And if I go back to storage, Holli and I paid 25 grand to teach us the self-storage industry years and years ago. And that course was still lacking, but we had to pay something. So huge financial hit, paid for it, but it has been very successful with the work that we put into it. But even if you haven't done any of that and you haven't gone coaching, counseling, mentorship, start where you are and use what you have, do what you can. But at the end of the day, you're starting. Just being a part of this group, you're actually investing into your knowledge base, because there's going to be a lot of information in the next week that you're going to get to help you put yourself in a better position. If you're not willing to do that, though, it's hard to really get started. So I commend you for joining. I would ask that if you can be here the rest of the week, the information is going to be extremely helpful. And then, take this information. If you've got people that you need to hear this information, other first responders, we would ask to keep it to first responders only. Bring them into the group, because our goal is help as many people as possible. And now we have a platform to do that. So, all right, that is where we're at. A little bit about my background. If you have questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. I'm reading some of this right now. Miles Monroe, he's awesome. Yes, yes, yes. Graduating, equally retired, nonetheless. Yeah, and that brings up a good point. Reading some of the comments, even if you're retired, there's still a lot of these principles that are extremely helpful, and we can still build real wealth. So, all right, I will now transition. I want to intro somebody that has been pivotal in our life. Holli already introduced him. His name is Ramie Khalil. I found Ramie years and years ago, actually through my wife. She started working for an entrepreneur that knew Ramie. We introduced, hit off right away. And Ramie's basically, we're talking, he's like, hey, Mike, let's have a real conversation. I was like, all right, I like real conversations. And we went through, our wealth plan and our foundation. And I realized, even with all of my knowledge, I still had some holes in our foundation. I still had some lack of protection, building the walls, etc. So he basically came in, helped us revamp our financial ecosystem, and helped us on a more of a fast track. Even with my knowledge, he has been pivotal in helping us get on track. So long and short, we built this amazing relationship. He's the owner of Fortress Financial, an amazing investment advisory company, life insurance company. The guy is an absolute savant. So as I intro him, I just want you to know this is a relationship that we have fostered for years. Deep, deep friends of ours, absolutely amazing. And I trust him with every single thing that I have. And now I know that he's got a huge heart to help first responders over the years. He's helping a bunch of departments in our area and throughout the US too. So it's pretty exciting to actually introduce him and start this process. And again, having this platform is absolutely amazing. So Ramie, let me bring you up here. There we go. He's much more handsome than I am too. I'm Irish. I don't tan well. I just burn. But he is looking very good. So again, somebody I trust. He's helped us manage all of our assets, put us in a good position. He's much, much smarter than I am. And I say that very seriously and humbly, and I'm okay with that. But to see the change that he's been able to implement in some of these families that he's already worked with has been really awesome. He's got an amazing heart for first responders, military, and he, just like us, wants to help. So without more, I will let you go, Ramie, if you want to say hi.
Well, thanks so much, Mike, for that introduction. Can you guys all hear me okay? Awesome. Excited to be here and to get a chance to actually finally do this. I know Michael and Holli just mentioned that in so many ways, this has been a long time coming. And it's really interesting for me because as a financial advisor, coming from the background that I do, guys, and having worked with hundreds and hundreds of clients, families, individuals, spoken to thousands of people over the last decade plus, I really have an interesting perspective that I want to share with you guys. And I really want to talk about, if you are watching this, there's a reason you are here. You are here because you saw that this was a challenge put together to teach you guys a strategy, a framework, a path that could actually allow you to retire in 10 years or less. And I want to talk about really why that's important. Okay. You see, guys, for me as an investment advisor, I've had a chance to sit down, as I just mentioned, with people from all walks of life, but specifically and uniquely over the last decade, our firm has worked with a lot of first responders, countless first responder families. And, imagine for a moment, if you sat down and for your professional career, you spent 5 to 6 hours a day sitting down with 3 to 4 different clients day in and day out. Imagine this for a moment. Imagine you wanted to learn actually how to create wealth. Your goal was, hey, I want a way to actually figure out how to have income and wealth so that I have more quality of life and time to do other things. And you came across a strategy and someone who said, here's how you're going to learn how to do that. You're going to sit down with people, first responders, and families who are already either in or close to retirement. Specifically, that's the phase of life they're in. And for 6 hours a day, you are going to interview 3 of these individuals. You're going to look at their finances. You're going to look at the last 30 years of their life as it relates to their wealth, their portfolios, their pensions, their social security decisions, their retirement accounts. And you're going to look at everything. And you're going to do that day in and day out, 5 days a week for 10 years. What do you think you would walk away with at the end of those 10 years? What do you think you'd walk away with the most? And the reality, guys, is what I walked away with after that is perspective. Because when you're going to school for finance or you're getting your designations and you're coming into the industry, you have a lot of book knowledge, a lot of things that are theoretical. But when you see someone's life work after a 30-year career as a first responder, after 30, 40 years of working in corporate America, and you actually see what they've done, it gives you perspective on what has actually created wealth and what has not. And when I met Mike and Hall, it was really unique because, as you guys can see, Michael is not the traditional law enforcement officer, right? I always say that Michael Peel is a investment advisor, financial planner in disguise in a law enforcement uniform. And the reason is because of the brilliance and the depth of knowledge and experience Mike and Holli possess in this conversation of finance. And so it's very unique and rare that you meet someone who's actually made a career shift to go become a first responder truly because of a desire to serve and do that, and leaving a very lucrative career in finance, and has this knowledge base and is actually implementing, building assets so that they're not actually dependent on their career. They're not dependent on their pension as their vehicle for creating financial freedom. And over the years of talking to Mike and having conversations and really even seeing, hey, Mike, you understand this stuff. You don't really need a financial advisor. Like, what you're doing is what you should be doing. So as we started this conversation, guys, and we started to actually get into what I was hearing and seeing, I knew that we had a really unique relationship from the tax perspective, the investment perspective, both really, involved in the first responder world. And we knew that, we wanted to share this information. And I've done workshops and I've talked to some of you guys individually and some folks who, Mike and Hall have introduced us to as it relates to our firm. And I've had the privilege of working with these people. And guys, the one thing I can tell you is that there is really no other community that is designed and is specific to first responders in this conversation of financial planning, how to make sure you're maximizing your financial decisions and can get on a faster track than the Wealth Op community. And so that's why we put this together. That's why you guys are here, guys. And it's really an honor for me because, as Mike said, I come from a family also of first responders at different levels. My mother's a nurse. We came here from a third world country. We came here from West Africa when I was a little boy with no money, no contacts, no credibility. And I saw my parents, my father was in the military. I saw my parents work incredibly hard, right? And I saw them work hard to give us a better quality of life. And so, it was the traditional advice of go to school, make sure you get educated, make sure that you get a safe career and work diligently, work hard, be smart, stay out of debt. It was all of the traditional advice. The challenge was, being a kid, I was always really keen and infatuated with this conversation of money and finance. And I saw that most people do not actually have the quality of life and the resources that they want. And yet most people are using the traditional advice that's out there. Even when it comes to investing, if you've already started investing in real estate, if you've been investing in the stock market, which we're going to talk about, right? If you've been maxing out your retirement accounts, guys, investing in your pension, all of these things, what I noticed was that most folks really did not actually intentionally know how to create wealth. They were kind of just checking the box along as they go and crossing their fingers, hoping that just things worked out, right? Absolutely, Ross, with truck drivers, right? First responders, guys, it's not just medical and law enforcement, right? Like first responders collectively are out there serving, putting their time and life, on the line, being there for people in their time of need. And what I realized is there's not a very specific niched approach for them. They have to go piece together what to do about their financial life from different professionals at different times. And so what we said is, hey, let's streamline this. Let's bring this information so that number one, we can level the playing field between Wall Street and Main Street. And number two, so that we can equip you guys and you can see that it does not have to take 30 years to create wealth, guys. And you're going to see that as we start to unfold and go through this. And so if you're here, make sure you're taking notes, because what you are going to learn, guys, is information that has action steps that if you implement, if you choose to do the action steps, you're going to accelerate your ability to create wealth. And you're going to put yourself on a different time frame and path that's going to help not just you, but it's going to help your family as well. And it's going to make sure that you can keep what you're working hard to gain and that you can get these results faster. And I want to talk about that for a moment. The goal of this is not why we said 10 years or less is not because of get rich quick, right? 10 years is not get rich quick. But the assumption I'm making for everyone here is that if you're watching this, guys, you're not solely wanting to solely be dependent on a 25, 30, 35 career trajectory where you have to work that long. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what my parents did. But the reality of wealth is it doesn't actually take that long when you understand what wealth is, the only asset classes that have actually been able to help people create wealth, and the right formula to use. And if you do these things, you are going to see this come together, guys, and you're going to now have more options in your life than you currently have. Okay. So I want to give you guys a definition of wealth. So if you are taking notes, no matter where you are and what you're doing, and if you're driving, don't obviously stop to take notes. Just go back and watch this part. But guys, I think it's really important that we have the right definition of wealth. Okay. Because when I use that word, I use it on purpose. So what I have seen over the years of people walking in the office is I've seen that irregardless of how much money someone has as it relates to lump sums, looking at a statement and seeing the value of your statement, most people don't truly retire and have freedom. There's more anxiety and stress if they don't actually have what I'm going to state next. And it actually can also set them up to make incorrect decisions. You see, what I've realized about wealth after meeting with people and seeing hundreds and hundreds of real estate portfolios, retirement strategies being used in the stock market, in the 457s, in the IRAs, the Roths, the solo retirement accounts, the pension options people choose. When I've seen all this, I've realized that wealth is when someone gets to a place where they have the financial resources, the income that they need to live the life that they feel called to live without the fear of running out of money. You are wealthy when you get to a place where you have the income that you need to live the life you feel called to live, guys, without the fear of running out of money. If you do not have income from assets, then instead of being retired and free, a lot of people end up retired and stressed, retired and nervous, anxious, not sure what's going to happen the next time the market takes a downturn. The old strategies and what your parents and grandparents had that you do not have, even if you are a first responder, firefighter, EMT, truck driver, right, medical professional, your generation of first responders has something going on that the previous generation of first responders did not have. And I want to share with you guys why this is important. Why what I'm going to say next is really why you have to show up these next few days, guys, to really learn these strategies that we're gonna unfold. We're laying the foundation here, but I want you to think about your parents and grandparents, or think about people in your department that have already been there for 30 years or 20 years. You see, here is what they had that today is not the case. In the old days, this conversation of wealth and money was a little bit simpler than it is today. And that's because most people would work 20 or 30 years in one place, right? One company, one department, one place, and they would collect a paycheck. And when the paycheck stopped, out went the paycheck, and what came in? A pension, right? Which again, you guys currently, first responders, guys, you're one of the last frontiers that actually has pensions. Most of the financial world, most of corporate America, pensions are a thing of the past. And there's a reason that is. And one of the days, I'm going to teach you guys a strategy called pension maximization, something people don't know about how to maximize their pensions, because pensions, even in this industry, are not off the table. With the way things are turning out right now in the financial world, guys, which I'll talk about, I would not be shocked to start to see pensions come into question for first responders. So you're going to want to learn pension max when we get into that strategy throughout this week. But your previous generations of first responders across the board had rock solid pensions. And typically they would retire and their pension would cover 80% of what their paycheck used to be, 70 to 80%. So think about this. If you retire and you have a fixed paycheck that has a due date every single month that covers 70 to 80% of your lifestyle needs, right? That's pretty solid. We're going to talk about the time thing because it still took time to get there. But then what else out? Here's the second question. What else did previous generations of first responders have that was a lot more solid than this generation? Now, most first responders don't have Social Security. Obviously, depends on where you are and what you are doing. But if you do have Social Security, let me just speak to this for a moment, or maybe your spouse does. Because this was the traditional idea of retirement and working and creating wealth, having financial freedom. It would be that outside your pension, if you had Social Security would kick in and would supplement what your pension left as a gap. And when Social Security was created, here's something people don't know about 2021. When Social Security was created, the math that supported it, guys, was that for every 41 employees working and contributing, there would be one employee or retiree pulling money out. So imagine a bucket of money where the plan is for 41 people to put money in and one person to be pulling money out. That was the math back in the 30s that supported the idea of Social Security being a strategy that could work. And life expectancy back then, here's the key for first responders. Life expectancy back when Social Security was created, even if you don't have it, this is important, was that you had to be around 62 to be eligible, but the average life expectancy in the US was 65. So the math that supported it was that this thing would only have to pay out on average for 3 to 4 years because of where life expectancy was. And last but not least, now we're seeing this again. We have not seen this for over 20 years, but how many of you guys remember previous generations of first responders? They could go down to a bank and open up a 5, 6, 7% CD, actually earn money on their safe money and not have to take a bunch of risk to get those types of returns. What about today's generation? Let's fast forward. In 2022, 2023, pensions for the first time are coming under the chopping block. Last year was one of the first years when we saw some banking collapses where people woke up, first responders had to wake up and go, whoa, maybe things are not as stable and secure as me just assuming everything's going to be fine when I retire. Because all of a sudden, as Mike pointed out, you have pension funds going, well, hey, we had our money in conservative accounts, conservative positions like bonds, like government-backed securities. But the Fed last year rose interest rates historically high so fast. It wasn't just that rates went up. It was that rates went up so fast that not only did the stock market go down by 26%, but the bond market went down by about 15%. So you had pension funds losing money in safe investments for a first time in a long time that they had to account for. And so the point of the matter is, guys, if you're just dependent on your pension, you're going to want to learn some things about your pension that are going to be key in helping you maximize those options. Okay? Because it's not like it used to be. Social Security 2021 was the first year. What does this have to do with me if I'm a cop, if I'm a firefighter, if I'm an EMT, if I'm a truck driver, and what if I don't have Social Security because I already have a pension? Well, here's what this has to do. 2021 was the first year that Social Security paid out more money than it collected in its trust fund since 1935. We finally had a year. This doesn't mean Social Security is going to go bankrupt, like most, talking heads want you to believe. But what that does mean is if you have a situation where as a government, Social Security is one of your biggest obligations, and for the first time you have more money going out than coming in, you either have to reduce those benefits or you have to do what? Potentially increase revenue. And how does governments increase revenue? Taxes. If you're a first responder and you're maxing out those 457s, those 401ks, and you're not thinking about not just what you make, but what you keep, you could be creating a tax trap for yourself. So we're going to talk about that, guys, and why that's important. And last but not least, safe money. Today, for the first time, because rates are up, you can actually earn interest on savings account. But guys, a couple years ago, that was impossible, right? How many of you guys remember where for over 15 years, you could not go to a bank and earn anything as it relates to interest on your cash accounts? So what does that mean? That means first responders were having to put money in more aggressive investments to earn rates that previous generations of first responders would have never had to consider. And so first responders today have a lot more risk as it relates. There's a lot less help when it comes to their financial life than previous generations had. They had way more help than today's generation. And we know that things are shaky these days, right? And so the point of this is you don't have to be susceptible to that. If you learn what we're going to share with you guys, I believe that if you learn this, you are going to be equipped to be able to immediately go out and maximize your financial position. And you're going to learn some things here that help you actually get to that place where you have assets that produce income sooner than later. And that's the goal of the Wealth Op Challenge. I think this is one of the most important challenges, one of the most important ops, right? For those of you who are familiar with that type of language, that you could undertake, that we could undertake. And so if you go out there and you look at the traditional financial firms, whether they're designations or certified financial planners or registered investment advisors, guys, the whole industry, there's no real tailored niche approach on a strategy that helps someone understand how to start with where they are as a first responder, maximize their financial position, maximize their financial position, reduce the risk, fees, and unnecessary taxes in their financial life, and learn some active investing strategies that we're going to show you. There's two specific strategies on the active investing side that you guys are going to learn over the next few days that immediately give you control and power over your ability to enhance your returns. And you're going to learn that. And there's no other place, there's no other system that does that I was looking, and Mike and I were looking, that we could really just hand you as a resource. And that's why we're doing this. That's why we're actually, if you're watching this, you're part of the very first group that's going to go through the Wealth Op Challenge. And not only that, guys, but you're going to actually get a copy. There's going to be a copy of the Wealth Op Manual, a book that I've co-authored with Mike, where not as a first responder, but as a first responder who has over a decade plus of experience investing their own money, Mike and Holli, and as a tax professional, a former tax professional, we are bringing in all of those elements into a streamlined plan for you guys that you guys are going to be able to take with you. And you're going to be able to actually look at, read, go back, ask questions as we talk about the next steps over the course of the next 5+ days that we're going to have. And so that is the goal. That is the challenge for most people today in the first responder industry, is you have to piece this together yourself. You've had to piece this together yourself up until now. And so there's a couple of things that I really want to encourage you guys to be thinking about and doing, because here is actually, this might shock you, but here's why most first responders don't create wealth sooner than later, why it actually takes them all the way till they get to their mid-50s. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is it doesn't have to. If you want to continue to work as a first responder, but you're doing so from the position where you know you don't have to, that is a powerful place to be. Where if I walk out the door and something happens and I'm not able to finish my career, I have assets and wealth that's going to continue to produce income for me so that I'm not dependent on this career. That was my goal with this, guys, and that's why you guys are here. So here's what I want you to be thinking about, guys. Most people don't actually create wealth, not just first responders, but out of the thousands of clients that have walked in my office, most people don't create wealth because they're not intentionally trying to. They're just trying to get through life. They're trying to get through the day, just win the day, win the week, get to the weekend. And so even when they think about their investment accounts, it's something that was given to them when they started work. It's like, here's your 401k, your 457, here's your pension. They check some boxes, put money away, don't think about it. And that is as much as they've ever really attempted. And so the reality is you have to shift from being a passive investor, someone who's just kind of passively trying to get this done, to an active investor if you really want to accomplish being able to create enough income from assets that you don't have to work, in 10 years or less. And so what I'm going to do, what Mike and I and Holly, what we're going to do is we're going to show up and I'm going to give you guys the path. I'm going to give you the plan and we're going to give you the blueprint. Okay. But you have to make a decision, guys, to show up, and you have to promise me that you're going to take action. Because here's the thing. The information that you do not implement cannot help you. So while you're going to walk away and you're going to learn, right, you're going to walk away with a lot more knowledge. Knowledge by itself won't change things for you. And so more than just the knowledge, more than just the information, there's going to be an action plan. How do you implement this in a strategic and tactical way so that we can actually see enhanced returns in our retirement accounts and our investment accounts, and so that we can actually start to create more income, more cash flow from these assets in a tax efficient way right now, not just 20 years from now, 30 years from now? How many of you guys are okay with that, with learning how to do that? I'm hoping that you guys are all nodding your heads or, dropping some likes if you're live, or giving me a thumbs up that that's what you want, because that's what we're going to do. That is the goal over the next 5+ days. Okay. And so with that, guys, here's what we're going to cover tomorrow as we talk about how do we actually start to make sure that we can retire in 10 years or less. You have to actually know your number. How many of you guys have ever seen those commercials where it's like it's a bed and they always talk about what's your sleep number, right? Like, hey, what's your sleep number? Well, guys, in the financial world, a lot of people with their investment life are putting the cart before the horse. They're investing and they don't even actually have a number in mind. And when you ask them, it's, hey, I want to make more money. I want to see the value of my portfolio go up. Of course you do. Everyone does, guys. Everyone wants to see the value of their portfolios go up, wants to make more money, but that's arbitrary. That doesn't actually specifically speak to your life. And so what you're going to learn tomorrow is how to actually learn and know what your number is. Because if you know your number, if you know what actually is the income that you need, that's not a cap. That's not to say, Ramie, how in the world am I going to know how much income I'm going to need 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, right? Cost of living goes up, right? What if my life changes? But that's fine. But here's the point, guys. If you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything. If we don't have a target and we don't go, okay, right now, what this would mean for me is I need to produce $10,000 a month for my assets. I need $15,000 a month. Whatever that number is, don't just write that number down. You have to know what that number is. You have to know your number, because when you understand what you're aiming for, we can actually start to structure and be more strategic about the investment strategy and how to actually know what investment strategy makes sense. How do I view these two strategies I'm going to learn within the context of what would be meaningful for me, what kind of return I would need to see, and how long would it take me to get there? Because all of a sudden, when you know that number, investing takes on a different role in your life. It looks different. It feels different. You're more empowered to go, okay, I can actually gauge and track how much closer am I getting to having that level of income and cash flow, right? And so it's not just about the value on a statement. It's actually about the ability of this asset to produce meaningful income in your life sooner than later. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow. I'm excited to actually get into that with you guys and to actually finally, as Mike and Holly said, guys, really be finally here on day one of our very first Wealth Op Challenge. And we're going to be unpacking this stuff. So remember, you have access to this. Do the homework, kind of think about today, as it relates to what does wealth mean for me? What would be the income I need to actually know that if I go to work tomorrow and something was to occur and I wasn't able to continue my career, or if I just chose that, hey, I want to make a career shift, I want to have more time, what's that income level that I would need to be able to, maintain my quality of life for my family, and actually have wealth working for me. Okay. So that is, guys, going to be the goal of this. And I'm excited to do that. And so I'm going to turn it back over to close us out, I think, to Holly, if you're there, let me know. And guys, we're excited. Make sure you show up tomorrow live. Or Mike, Mike's here, so make sure you show up tomorrow.
She's
live.
better than I am. Here
I was
we go.
going to say it's Mike and Hall. And so, guys, make sure you show up live. Be here early. Be excited about this, because I'm telling you guys, there's over, don't quote me on this, but I think over 400,000 law enforcement officers across the board. You know, that number is in the millions for first responders, between truck drivers, between EMT, fire, medical professionals, guys. And less than 1% of them actually know how to create wealth and are dependent on their careers and are out there. And you guys are all serving your communities. You're taking risk every day that you get on the road, that you go to work. And I want to make sure, as an investment advisor who's focused on this for first responders, I want to make sure that your money is working as hard and harder for you than you are for your families and your communities, so that when you go to work, it's with a different mindset, knowing that there's a plan right now underway that's helping me create wealth faster than me just being reliant on this career. That's what you guys are going to learn over the next few days.
So good. Thank you so much, Ramie. Thanks, babe.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys. So tomorrow, same time, same place, whether you watch in the Facebook group or on YouTube, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're coming back tomorrow. Like Ramie said, tomorrow is all about knowing your number, finding and discovering your number. So you are not going to want to miss that, whether you know your number or not. Make sure that it's the true number that you need, and that you will be able to go into day 3 then kind of a little bit ahead of schedule, because now you know your number. So with that said, we're going to sign out. We'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, same place. Watch your email for that replay in case you need to go back, take some notes. I took some notes myself. So it's always a learning journey. It was awesome to hang out with you guys today. We'll see you tomorrow.
Invite a friend too. If somebody needs this, bring them in tomorrow. It's not too late. We're going to bring this message to the entire industry. So invite a friend and we'll have fun teaching the Wealth Op. See you tomorrow.
Yep. And I just dropped that link right there, wealthopchallenge.com. If you did want to invite a friend, please make sure that they are a first responder. We really want to make sure that we're protecting this community for you guys, for us as well. So wealthopchallenge.com. Can't wait to see you guys tomorrow. Bye.